Hello guys, I know you haven't heard much from me in the last couple of months, and since the release of my debut game Clio, more than a year has passed, and that time was just like the development phase, full of ups and downs. Clio received very good reviews on Steam and was nominated for 2 very important German Game Awards. But on the other hand, I have to admit that the time after the release was mentally and emotionally more challenging than I thought it would be. I felt tired and exhausted and unmotivated and just lost from time to time. And to think about doing all this same thing once again just really scared me. So I thought a lot about whether I could make a second game, if I want to take the pressure and the risk again. And if so, what kind of game I wanted to make, considering that my personal favorite genre, the point-and-click adventure, is a niche. And it's just really hard to pull off a financial success in the long run. So I worked on some prototypes for a completely different kind of game. And I also worked on some prototypes for a genre mix, combining point-and-click adventure with more modern game mechanics. But that just didn't resonate with me. So I came to the conclusion that I would feel the most safe and confident to work on a truly classic point-and-click adventure. And since my girlfriend and I moved to a different apartment in the last month, I took the chance to prepare my workspace so that I can create video content for you guys. I will record my development sessions and edit a monthly devlog so that we can go through all of this together. And yeah, let's start. Today is April the 14th. I want to announce the game on the 1st of May. So let me tell you what we already have and what still needs to be done to set up the Steam page for the announcement. As for the story, I only have a really rough outline. Some ideas of scenes, characters, plot points, but by far not the whole thing. When I was writing Clio, the story changed a lot during the development process. So I hope in this project that the story will evolve organically when I dive into crafting and fleshing out the characters and scenes. The world that the story will take place in will be a fantasy world. And I want it to feel like you put every piece of fiction or fairy tale that you've read in your childhood into a blender and mix everything together no matter what. Like imagine there's a little kid you're supposed to tell a story to, and it has to be the most epic, bizarre, unbelievable adventure ever, but you have to tell it from the top of your head. You would just go crazy and take references from all over the place, right? Like you would say, I crash land on an island and there are talking dinosaurs. And then I run into a forest and there's a wolf who is a strange scientist and stuck in a time loop or something like that. I want the possibility of having a rude, snobby vampire in a castle on the one side and a mad king and a princess in a tower on the other. I want it to feel like you fell into a fantasy world where all this stuff kind of coexists and everything seems kind of familiar but works totally different in the end. As inspiration for this kind of world building, I would like to focus on 3 main sources. Let's take a look at them. Number 1, the novels of Walter Mörs, which are awesome. These illustrations alone are worth buying the books, in my opinion. And these stories are all set on a fictional fantasy continent that works somewhat similar to what I just described. Number 2, the more bizarre point-and-click adventure games of the past, like Sam & Max or Toonstruck. Both games are great in not taking themselves too seriously, and both have some of the most crazy and twisted scenes and environments I've ever seen in a point-and-click adventure. And number 3, fantasy movies of the 80s, like Labyrinth, The Dark Crystal, or The Neverending Story. What I love about these movies is that they don't set themselves too many rules of what's possible and what's not, and so they're just wildly creative. I mean, look at David Bowie's hair. Awesome. So let me show you what I already have for the game. I have the title design that I kind of like because I feel like it hits the vibe of those 80s fantasy movies I was just talking about. I also have a first draft of the 3 main characters. Everything is subject to change here. I don't even have names for them right now. It's just to start playing around with the idea of 3 main characters in this fantasy environment. I have a rough first poster to work with, and the same thing in a landscape format to be able to create some assets for the Steam store. And I have 4 screenshots of the game. Those are, of course, not actually screenshots out of any existing game. Those are painted in Photoshop, and I want the game to look like that in the end, and hopefully we can pull it off. And yeah, so for the end of this recording session, let me show you the Steamworks page, where I have to set up the store page for the game. Here you can see Clio, A Pirate's Tale, and here under Unreleased App is already a pretty broken adventure. And when I go onto this page, we can see a lot of unchecked boxes right here. And we will deal with some of them in the next recording session. The first step I wanted to take care of was the title animation. I wanted the letters to build up one by one, so I started by breaking the title down into all the individual parts in After Effects. I first made subcompositions for the 4 separate words, and then broke them down into each letter one by one. This allowed me to animate each letter individually and work my way forward bit by bit. So I started with the letter A at the top and again broke it down into several pieces with the help of the masking tool and started animating them. For the word broken, I had the idea it could be built up from shards, like from a broken mirror or something. So I first offset all the letters a bit and then worked with a lot of masking to break the word into individual shards. It turned out a little different than I had imagined, but I'm quite happy with it now. Then I worked on the rest of the letters until the whole animation was done. I knew for the announcement teaser I wanted to do a tracking shot from the sky to the ground and reveal the title while the camera was moving down. So I finished today by painting some branches on the trees and creating a composition in After Effects to set the rough timing for the teaser. Over the next 2 days I created the final illustrations for the teaser in Photoshop. Up to that point it was just a rough layout to define the colors and shapes, and most of it was painted on the same layer and so on. So it was necessary to create a new clean outline, details and shading for almost everything in the Photoshop file. Then I created separate layers and arranged them in After Effects to create a so-called parallax effect when the camera moves. Then I added the title animation and got a first impression of how the announcement teaser would look like. And at the end of the day, I worked on the UFO animation at the start of the teaser. To decide on the final timing of the animations, of the UFO, title reveal, camera movement, etc., I decided to work on the sound first. I like it when animations and effects match the beat of the music or have some kind of rhythm to it, so I thought it would be a good idea to take care of the sound design and music for the next 2 days. After that, I took care of the last animation details for the teaser. I definitely wanted to add 2 or 3 small animations in the background to make everything a bit more lively. First, I animated a flag for the city in the background, and then I created a very simple animation of a bat and made a small swarm of bats for the castle in the background. And finally, I added a small animation to the screen of the deck in the foreground. And when the teaser was finally finished, I could take care of creating and uploading the assets for the store page. Steam requires a lot of different assets for the store in different sizes, different aspect ratios and so on, so it takes some time to create all the needed files. And then on the evening of April 26, I sent all the assets to Steam for approval, since 2 to 3 business days are needed to release the page. 2 days later, on April 28th, I received an email from Steam that the store page had been accepted. I am very excited. It took me a while, but now I'm hyped and highly motivated to start with the actual development of the game. So let's start Unity. Create a new project. And let's start. So, see you on June the 1st with the next devlog, and please don't forget to wishlist. Thank you so much, everybody.